Hello, and thanks for tuning in for our latest math lesson, which is 1.6, comparing and ordering decimals. Once you're done heading your notes with your name and your date, please continue watching. All right, now you should have your 1.5 homework in front of you. We already checked if it was done, and now you're going to check if it's correct to give feedback to yourself to know how you're doing. All right, pause the video right now to check your homework. All right, you should have just checked your homework, and now we're going into our next lesson, lesson 1.6, comparing and ordering decimals. All right, let's read this right now. How can you compare decimals? Batting averages for a single season are shown for some baseball players. Which of the two batting averages circled is greater? All right, so there's two specific ways that we're going to compare these, but first I'm going to ask you a few questions. First question is, how many decimal places do these batting averages have? After I ask a question, I'll count down from 3, and then I'm going to tell you the answer, but before that, you should have talked to your partner about that. 3, 2, 1. All right, each batting average has 3 decimal places. 1, 2, 3. All right, and next one is, how would you write this one in short word form? 3, 2, 1. All right, and you should have said 342 with the digits and then the word thousands, because this goes tenths, hundreds, thousands. So it ended with thousands. All right, and last question before I talk about how to compare them. If the player with this batting average, the 342 thousandths, went up to bat 1,000 times, how many hits would they get? 3, 2, 1. They would have gotten 342 hits if they went up 1,000 times. All right, let's go on. So the first way, one way to compare these is by putting them on a number line. So we can compare 342 thousandths and 344 thousandths by locating them on a number line. All right, so I see that both of them go between 340 thousandths and 345 thousandths. And if you look at the tick marks right here, 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 and here, then they represent counting up 1 thousandths. So 341 thousandths, 342 thousandths, and they put that right there. 343 thousandths, 344 thousandths, and 345 thousandths. Talk to your partner right now what number you think this is. 3, 2, 1. If you said that was 347 thousandths, you are correct because you counted 346, 347. All right, well, let's get to the actual problem. Well, I see that 344 thousandths is to the right on the number line, and therefore it is greater. So I read 344 thousandths is greater than 342 thousandths. Now I'm interested, what's the other way that we could do this? Because do I need to draw a number line every time? Okay, so our other way is right here, and that is to line up the decimal points. I like this. I think it's easier. So we see that the decimal points are right above each other, and that's the most important part of this, is if you line them up, you need them right above each other. No matter how long the number is, the decimal point must be above each other. So I'm looking, and I'm going to compare the digits from left to right, from biggest to smallest. All right, they both have a 3. They both have a 4 in the hundredth spot, but this one has a 4 in the thousandth spot. That's bigger than 2, and so then I would write 344 thousandths is greater than 342 thousandths. Let's go to the next example. Let's read this problem, and we're going to practice lining up the decimal points way. Order 402 thousandths, 3 and I think I read the first one wrong. Let's reread that. 4 and 2 thousandths, 3 and 985 thousandths, and 4 and 100th from least to greatest by lining up the numbers so their decimal points align. Then compare digits from left to right and order the digits of each place value. Why are we ordering from left to right? Well, we're looking at the biggest number first, and then we'll go down to the smallest, because the biggest numbers matter more. If you'd ask somebody, who has more money, the guy with $4 and some change or $3 and some change, well, you know automatically the person with $4 has more. So let's look at these numbers, and they're written in exactly the same order as up in the problem. Okay, so first we look at the whole numbers. And when I look at that, I already know which one is the smallest. These ones both have 4, this one has 3, therefore we know that that is the least. And by the way, I don't need you to write these words up here, but I do want you to have in your example everything that's going to be in this circle, everything in there. Alright, so now we see that we moved them. They wanted them from least to greatest, and so we put the least one first because I had 3. But now we need to look at the next digit. These are both 4, so let's look at the next digit. When I look at the next digit, I see a 0 in the hundred spot, and down here I see a 1 in the hundred spot. 1 is greater than 0, and therefore I think I should leave this here, and that must obviously be the greatest. So now what I have is them in the same order, but now I know this is the greatest, so I have least, middle, and greatest. And now we have our answer from least to greatest right here. Let's go on to example 2. Alright, so for example 2, we know that I would like you to try to do it first and then come back and get the answer. So you're going to write these 3 problems in the example 2 section, head it with example 2. Make sure you have the questions written and not just the answers. And then when you're ready for the answers, please come back and check it. Please pause the video now. Alright, so you should have lined up your decimal points because that's the practice skill that we're working on right now for comparing decimals. And when you line them up right above this decimal point, you may notice that 7.3 has 2 digits and this has 3, but that's okay. Any digits past this would count as zeros and they can just go on forever, but we need to make sure we line up the decimal points. So we see that 7s are the same, and then we see that this one has a 3 and this one has a 2, so we know that you should have put 7 and 25 hundredths is less than 7 and 3/10. So let's look at this one over here at number 4. When you line up the decimal points right here, the 1 spot is the same, the 10th spot is the same, and if you're paying attention when I was talking over here, any number after that is 0. They just don't feel a need to write it. And so what you should have had here is equals. Alright, and over here I also wrote all of them on top of each other, paying careful attention to lining up the decimal points because that's the most important part. First I'm going to look at the biggest numbers, and I see there's 3 6s. I know those are going to be the least. So let's look at next the 10th spot in those numbers. I see a 2, I see a 1, and I see a 2. Well, that's obvious that the 6.1 is the smallest, and I'm going to cross that off. Next, I see 2 and a 2. Let's look at the 100 spot. 5 and a 9. 5 is less than 9, so I'm going to write 6.257. Alright, I'm going to cross that off. I used it, and let's write our last 6, our one that had a 6 as a whole number. And I just used that. So now let's look at our 7s. They both have 7, and this one has 0 in the 10th spot, and this one has a 6. Well, 0 is less than 6, so I'd put 7 and 8 hundredths, and then 7 and 6/10. If you did this right, you're awesome. Did you know that? Let's go on to the next example. If you don't have this written, then please pause the video now. Just kidding, you don't have another example because we have independent and partners practice. And please go to page 23. You are doing numbers 14 through 17 and 20 through 23. Numbers 20 through 23, you don't need to write the questions, and I'm having you do those because those are problem solving and will get you thinking more. When you're ready to check your answers, please go on to the next slide. Pause your video now. Here are your answers for those questions. You should have the questions written for 14 through 17, but you don't need the questions for the rest of them. You need the answers. Thank you for watching this video, and now please go to the Socrative gas station for this lesson.